Sorry about my clunky.
I think we're rolling now.
Okay, we're
It's
recording.
recording.
All right.
That's
All right.
great.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Barry Lenore. I'm with the Office of New Student and Family Programs here at Virginia Tech. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our summer family webinar series. Today's topic is specifically for international families. We welcome you wherever you may be watching from. It's a beautiful morning here in Blacksburg, Virginia, in the United States, although it's going to be a hot day. And when it's hot here, it gets to be about, I think we're expecting about 94, 95 degrees with a heat index of around 104, which is pretty hot for the mountains of Blacksburg. It's my pleasure to welcome our panelists who are with us this morning, who are going to be taking you through some of the basics of what you need to know. We have Rob Emmett, Lauren Oliver, Danielle Davis from our Cranwell International Center. And a couple logistics before we begin. There is a question and answer function enabled for all participants where you can post a question in the Q&A. All participants should be able to see every question that is asked, and you can even upvote. If someone else asks a question that you wanted to ask, you can upvote it. The chat is enabled just for us panelists, but we will post links and things into the chat. You as participants can see it, you just can't chat with us. And panelists, if we need to communicate internally, we can communicate with the chat also. At the end of the webinar, after about 1 hour, there will be another slide that shows a link to a survey. And if you complete that survey and give us your email address, we will send you the full transcript of the entire Q&A and the full transcript of the chat. And then later this week, probably by about Friday, because it takes a while to process and clean up the actual transcript, by about Friday, we will post this video on our YouTube channel. So tell your friends that they can have a great sleep aid after Friday and watch this video. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to our panelists. We're so excited to have Rob, Lauren, and Danielle with us this morning. Good morning, team.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think Lauren's going to start us off. And Barry, could you enable the screen share so we can have our slides up? Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I'm Lauren Oliver. I'm the director of the International Center. We'll talk a lot this morning about the services and support that we offer international students at Virginia Tech. I just wanted to say to parents who are joining, thank you so much for entrusting Virginia Tech with your child. I know that that's no short feat and can be really stressful, and we hope to offer a little bit of comfort to you in the transition, that we create many intentional moments to kind of help and support them throughout their journey with us here. And so we are all resources for you as well. And we'll talk a little bit about, if you are involved with your student, how to best connect with us. We do hope that you all become partners too, in helping your students have agency over their experience here. And so helping them reach out to us as they need, as a safe group and partner in their success together. I'm actually in Switzerland at our campus here in Riva San Vitale. So I won't be able to stay the whole time, but I have full trust in my team's capabilities to introduce you to what we do and the meaningful opportunities and services that we offer students. So excited to welcome your students in August. It feels far away, but it's not. And hoping that we can give you some support today to make that transition smooth to your arrival in Blacksburg. So thanks for joining us this morning, and thanks to those who listen later online. And I will pass it off to my colleague, Rob.
Here. Thank you so much, Lauren. We got our screen share working, so hopefully everyone can see our slides. We're going to share some information, as Lauren said, about the services and programs that we offer here. We'll introduce our team. We'll talk a little bit about the journey of international students to Virginia Tech, and we'll share some tips for supporting your student. And then we'll have, I think, time for questions and answers. I'm really grateful that Danielle Davis is here. I want to let Danielle introduce herself. And my name is Rob Emmett. I'm Associate Director for International Programs. So I'm over the program side of things here, but I'd love, Danielle, for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, happily. Good morning, everybody. My name is Danielle Davis. I'm the Associate Director for International Student Services. So the way that our office works is we sort of have two sides of the house. One is the more programming, cultural engagement, international student experience, which is Rob's side. And then my side is more of the international student services. So visa, advising, immigration status, all of those really fun things fall on my team over on the other side of the house. So we do walk-in hours, appointments, things like that to make sure that students are getting the information they need about their status while they're on campus. Really lovely to be here with you all today, and I will be answering questions in the Q&A. So if anything comes up that you'd like to know more about related to visas and immigration and all that fun stuff, I will be here to answer those.
Wonderful. Thank you, Danielle. And we have a slide that talks a little bit about our advising model. So I think Danielle will probably say a few more words when we get to that. I just wanted to point out that we are located on campus, and for first-year undergrad students, what this means is that the Cranwell International Center in our services is available to undergrads on the residential side of campus. We're actually in a residential hall, Harper Hall. The picture on the right shows you our building. We're on the ground floor, and we have 249 beds above us, and there are some international students who are staying here in Harper Hall, but many of the other first-year dorms or residence halls are not far away, so we're very accessible. So our mission at Cranwell is to support international student success in a holistic way at Virginia Tech. We have been really working to increase our efficiency for the important immigration services for students that they require while they're here, all the way through their time at Virginia Tech. We partner a lot with other offices, including student family programs, career and professional development, and a host of other offices that we'll talk more about to help students prepare, especially for their career steps. We offer excursions and cultural programming, sometimes directly from the Cranwell Center with our staff, and sometimes with campus partners like Venture Out and Rec Sports and student engagement and campus life. And everything that we do is informed by our deeply felt sense of the challenges and needs of international students and their families. Many of us on the staff here have lived overseas with ourselves. We've worked overseas outside the United States. We've worked on residence permits. We've brought our families outside the U.S. So we know that there are a set of unique challenges that international students face when they come to Virginia Tech, and it is our goal to make it easier for international students to succeed here. So as Danielle said, the organization of our center is we have our leadership and administration, and we have our international student services side, and then we have our program side. In the program side, we actually have a position that's dedicated now to the international student experience, and that position, Susie Young, who's the Assistant Director for International Student Experience, is over the orientation and support programs throughout the semester. And those include things that have already started. Actually, every new international student has been invited to a series of webinars that we've been running starting in May that covers important topics for them. We also have campus and community engagement activities that are led by a staff position. And finally, here in Harper Hall, we have a living learning program, a community that is made up of about 200 students who are all dedicated to intercultural learning. So there are 8 different groups that are focused on language acquisition, immersion language, and then one group that's an intercultural learning group. So that's part of the way that we're structured. I want to hand it back to Danielle to give her an opportunity to talk a little bit about our advising model, so you get a sense of what your student can expect.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So here you can see at the Cranwell International Center, we have started taking a teams-based model approach to international student advising. And essentially what this means is that our staff are assigned into different alternating teams so that we have a variety of experience levels on each of those 2 teams to work with the international students that come in for walk-ins, advising, appointments, all that stuff. So essentially, when students request something from us, whether that's a travel signature or they want to do an internship and they're looking for the authorization to do that, those requests are assigned out to our staff based on the complexity and staff's experience with that particular issue or item or request. That means that more complicated requests are dealt with primarily by higher level advisors. So maybe a senior international student advisor, maybe an assistant director, whereas some of the easier and the shorter queries will go to our international student advisors or even our international student services assistant, who can do things like sign travel signatures and stuff like that. This means that routine requests are a lot quicker. So we want to get things out to students as quickly as possible, but the more complex things can take a little bit longer because it takes additional steps and expertise to work with those and to deal with those. The primary ways that we meet with students in person are going to be through walk-ins or through appointments. Walk-ins are the easiest ways for students to get quick answers. So if a student comes in and has a very quick answer, like, hey, I'm really interested in going back home for the summer. What do I need to take care of before I do that? Or I'm thinking that I might want to do an internship. Can you point me in the direction of where I can start looking for those internships? Or can you tell me what I might want to think about before I do that? We'll answer those questions during walk-ins. We hold them 4 times a week for about 2 hours a day. And we see a lot of students coming in with those kinds of queries. We do walk-ins whenever classes are in session, which means that even during the summer term, when most faculty members might not be on campus, we are still here providing those walk-in services because there are some courses that are happening during the summer, and we know not all students, particularly international students, go home for the summer months. If there's something that's a little bit more complex and a student can't bring that with them to walk-ins, we will take them for appointments. Appointments range from anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on how complicated or complex the issue they want to talk through is. And so for students that are coming in to talk about appointments, they can schedule with advisors based on the topic that they want to discuss about. So you have a couple of different ways that students can get in contact with us and can get these advising services. And we find that most students prefer for the quick things to come in and get a quick answer. Whereas if it's more complex, we really do want to be taking some additional time to talk with them and make sure that their concerns are heard and that they know what they need to do to move forward.
Thank you, Danielle. So we're going to talk now a little bit about the international student journey at Virginia Tech, and I'll start with some information that gives you a context for international students at Virginia Tech. So we have about 37,000 students in total. So it's a fairly large institution here. And in fall 2023, we had 3,770 international students who were studying on F1 status. We also have usually several dozen who are here studying on the J1 status, seeking degrees. We also have a few exchange students every semester. And then we have over 1,000 students who are actually alumni, no longer students, but who graduated and remain in the United States utilizing the work authorization benefit of F1, which is the optional practical training, or the STEM extension to optional practical training. And they're working across the United States. And these students represent over 126 countries by our last count. The image you see here is a density map, so it shows you where the most students, the largest number of students are coming from. And we, Virginia Tech, follow very much the pattern that you see across the United States. So India is the largest origin for country of citizenship for students coming to Virginia Tech as of last year, followed by China and South Korea, Bangladesh, Nepal. These are in our top 5. But we have students from every inhabited continent. And I always like to say inhabited continent because Virginia Tech does have some programs down in Antarctica. We have a Hokies in Antarctica study abroad program. So the path for international Hokies begins long before the students leave home. All new students, of course, are invited to the New Student Family Program's virtual orientation. They will have received that invitation to their official Virginia Tech email, and also to webinars like this one. So we have been offering our own webinars that are specific to international students. We started doing this in May of this year. We had in the past been running mini webinars, but they start later. This year, we decided to offer 4 key webinars focusing on student medical insurance, obtaining a visa, transportation, and then housing, which is really focused on the off-campus housing piece. For undergraduate students, your student will be receiving information from housing at vt.edu because they'll be living on campus. And they should be opening those emails as soon as they get them, because there's very important information. The beginning of this month, Housing sent out an email to all new incoming first-year students, for example, and that email instructed students how to enter their roommate preference. So that's one of the important things that the students receive from Housing at VT.edu. It does not come from our office. It comes from the central office. International students get both content that is delivered to all new students, and then they also get specialized content that our office prepares. We've been inviting the students to join pre-arrival modules in Canvas. Canvas is our learning management system. It's similar to Moodle or Google Sites or other classroom virtual management systems. And Canvas allows us to store webinars that we've produced and also share additional content, including content produced by current international students and information about student organizations, life in Blacksburg. We have a list of things like cell phone providers and banks from current international students. And we have, of course, lots of information about the process of getting and maintaining your F1 status, working in the United States while an international student, and things of that nature. So if you could please remind your student to join the Canvas pre-arrival modules and complete the transportation survey that we've shared. Those methods of communication are extremely helpful. They help us before the student arrives here in August to support them with the choices they need to make. So I have another public service announcement, which is on behalf of a different office here at Virginia Tech, but it's important for international students because international students are required to have health insurance, either through the Virginia Tech Student Health Insurance Plan or a comparable plan. And the period for open enrollment starts next week. So there is a link here, which I think maybe if someone could jot that link into the chat. This is a link directly to the Student Medical Insurance website, where you can find out more about the Aetna plan. But that's a really important one because it is a requirement and also because it will make sure that your student is able to successfully access medical treatment of all kinds if they need it. So the typical logistics for an international student have a few extra pieces. So some of the things, of course, every student is navigating these, and that's part of the process of going to college, and we know that. But for international students, if you're traveling 5,000 plus miles, maybe over 30 hours in an international flight, navigating transportation to campus is a bit more challenging. Of course, you might also need to open a U.S. bank account. You might have to switch to a U.S. cell phone provider, and then navigating local facilities, including our local transportation system. We have an excellent bus system here. It is free for all Virginia Tech students, and it is pretty easily accessible and relatively easy to navigate, but even public transportation systems that differ pretty dramatically around the world. And then the basics of things like grocery shopping or finding a place of worship or a community of people who are speaking the language of your home culture. Those are all things that we know international students are navigating, in addition to then engaging in all the exciting parts of the student experience. So our office is actually located in the Student Affairs Division within a group called Experience VT. So part of our objective as a larger community in student affairs is to help all students find their place, find their people, and explore their passions. So that's something that's very much happening outside of the classroom. For all the academic pieces, I'll talk a little bit later about academic supports here, which are very robust. But I wanted to just share with you some of the things that our office does to support the logistics of arrival for international students. So one of the things that we do is we have an earlier move-in for international first-year undergraduate students. So our move-ins can start on August 18th. This is information that we've been communicating through emails directly to the vt.edu email of your accepted student. And also we've been communicating through the transportation survey that I mentioned earlier. So we have an early move-in date of August 18th on Sunday for students who might be arriving with family members, and August 19th for students who are arriving solo. We have a staff welcome for students who are arriving at the Roanoke and Dulles airports. So on August 18th, on the Sunday, we'll have staff who are at the Roanoke airport until 5 p.m. from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we'll also have some staff who are at the Dulles airport to facilitate students finding the Virginia Breeze bus from Dulles Airport to get to Blacksburg, Virginia. And we will also have a kiosk that is set up as a welcome kiosk at our new transit center here on the campus that'll be staffed by Cranwell staff, and that will be available from the 18th through the 20th. Next, we have a welcome dinner and orientation program, which we're doing in partnership with new student and family programs. So we have on the 18th, Sunday the 18th at 6 p.m., we have a dinner welcoming students who might be traveling with their family members. And then on Monday the 19th in the morning, we have our orientation program. And what you can expect from that orientation program is 2 hours of information, but also an emphasis on connecting with one another, getting to know one another, settling in. We're trying to make that an easier transition to campus. And then on the evening of Monday the 19th, we'll have a dinner at 6 p.m. for students who are arriving solo. And on Tuesday at 9 a.m. on August 20th, we will have the orientation program in the morning for undergraduate students who are arriving solo. There will be also opportunities to connect with service providers on campus during our orientation programming. So each day at 11 a.m., we've invited local service providers. There will be a representative from a local bank. There'll be a representative from student medical insurance, and that is meant to give an opportunity to maybe meet some of those basic needs. Next, we'll have staff-led trips to grocery and shopping areas. I'm really pleased that we're partnering with Student Engagement and Campus Life on this. So we'll have our own bus and vans that will be heading out to shopping areas, just in case a student needs to pick something up that they might have forgotten. And I want to emphasize, finally, the Hokies on Track app. And I know Barry earlier had the Hokies on Track, the logo, I think it's on the shirt that he's wearing today. But just a reminder that I'm talking about some of the things that Cranwell does specifically for international students, but every single new undergraduate student is plugged into campus-wide support structures, and Hokies on Track is one of those. And the Hokies on Track app is a thing that helps your student connect with events that might be meaningful to them. And some of these are really large events like the Global Dance Party, which we'll be having on Tuesday, August 20th. But some of them are smaller, and they're designed to help students who might be a bit more introverted or shy. Certainly when I was an 18-year-old student, I was the kind of person who preferred to be in a small group of maybe 6 people or 4 of my friends or my roommate and just do something quieter, like get together to do a craft or art project or read. So there are also events like that. Now, one thing that's unique to international students that we recognize and that I wanted to make sure we had a little time to talk about, because there's some tips for supporting your student, is culture shock, right? Adjustment to a cultural change when you move outside of your home culture requires some extra effort. It takes a little bit more cognitive load, as the neuroscientists say. Culture shock is a kind of homesickness that results from the stress of living in a new culture when everything is different. The language, the food, the customs, of course, everything about finding your way in a new place is a kind of culture shock that every student who comes to Virginia Tech experiences, but an international student experiences this on top of other layers of cultural difference. So that very much can be a kind of shock to the system, and your student might experience symptoms like sadness or loneliness. They might express feeling intense homesickness. Their sleep pattern could change. When our bodies are under stress, often that affects our ability to sleep in the same way. So that can take the form of either having trouble falling asleep or maybe sleeping more than usual. And of course, the jet lag that we experience when we travel across continents starts us off in that way. It can also result in things like changes in mood and a lack of confidence. So these are just some symptoms and signs to be thinking about and looking out for in your student. The other piece of this is that the folks in international education who've been studying culture shock as a phenomenon for many decades, this is a graph that's used quite frequently to express what the empirical research suggests about how culture shock typically works. In fact, some people now talk more about cultural adjustment and less for shock, because this pattern of waves looks very different for different people. Not everyone experiences the intensity of peaks and troughs or highs and lows in their experience when they travel outside of their home culture. But there is a pretty typical pattern, and most of this is from data that looks at students who are studying abroad, so only doing an exchange program for about 6 months. For a student who's coming to complete a 4-year degree, they're probably going to get through the waves of cultural adaptation and adjustment by the end of their first year. But there's a very typical pattern where within the first 3 weeks, a student arrives and they're on a high. They're so excited to be here in Blacksburg, and we're so thrilled that they're here as well. They experience a lot of joy and excitement discovering novelty. And then the reality of how different things are starts to set in. Maybe they miss their favorite food that was cooked at home, and we have fabulous dining services, but we're cooking for 37,000 people who are coming from many different places, and as a consequence, you might not be able to get exactly the authentic home-cooked dish that you're really missing at a particular time. After a few months, there is a level of surface adjustment where students have learned the local slang, they know how to get around campus, they start to feel more confident. And then there can be another kind of downturn as students encounter deeper cultural and personal issues. And I actually mapped this onto, on the next slide, the pattern of student life more generally, because it's not only our international students who experience this. A great many Virginia Tech undergraduate students come here to Southwest Virginia from other parts of the United States, and there are some pretty significant cultural differences between Southwest Virginia and, say, New Jersey, for example, or California. And there's some differences that have to do with just changing your routine, moving from high school to living in a dorm, having a roommate, and being fully responsible for monitoring your own time and your studies. So there's also a pattern that we see with all students, and this is across student affairs, what we see in our service to students, which is that there's a downturn about week 3 when the first exam period, the studying for that first exam starts. People start to have a higher level of stress. There's a moment mid-semester where a lot of undergraduates they're tired and they're negotiating, maybe living with roommates and the issues that can arise with living with someone new. Usually students are riding a high as they go into Thanksgiving break, right? They're past the midpoint of the semester. They have a break coming up, so morale is very high. And then here in Blacksburg, we're in the Northern Hemisphere. We have 4 distinct seasons. One of those seasons, winter, includes cold weather, gray skies sometimes, and some snow. And we notice that definitely affects students as well. So as you're supporting your student, be thinking as well about how these are seasons of student life and be looking for those symptoms and thinking about how to support them. We do know that international students face some common challenges. So with academics, the academic system at a university in the United States can be slightly different. There's a higher expectation here of classroom engagement, of speaking up. There's a tradition of Socratic dialogue in the classroom where students are very much in a smaller seminar expected to even disagree or offer their unique perspective, their individual perspective. There's a big emphasis on academic integrity, that is doing one's own work and representing the work of others accurately. And this is, again, because there's such a strong individualist tradition in the United States and in U.S. higher education that there's this premium placed on the individual contribution as opposed to the collective work of learning. There is also some aspects of academics that I think are important to encourage your student to engage in. One of them is proactive help seeking. So students at Virginia Tech are very much expected by faculty to seek out help when they need it, and that can take many different forms. And then finally, the relationship with an academic advisor, which is usually more important for graduate level students, but for undergraduates can also be important. So if your student has that opportunity when they're invited to meet with an academic advisor, it's highly recommended that you encourage them to make sure they meet with their academic advisor if they ever mention that, so they can get help navigating the check sheet for their major. Of course, international students also are facing some cultural and social challenges too. One is navigating the bureaucracy. Your student will have already hopefully requested, if not received, their I-20. There is a host of immigration forms that start with I, an alphabet soup of U.S. bureaucracy for international students that supports and is required to come here. There are additional systems that you have to learn as a Virginia Tech student. So starting with your email, whether you've used Outlook before, you have to learn to use the MS Outlook email platform. There are many other systems. There is a culture here of rule following at the institution that is very culturally specific, that there's rules are very much like yes, no, hard boundaries often. And that can take some getting used to if you come from a culture where sometimes rules are a little bit more fungible or negotiable. Here, if something is written down as a policy, it's very much no means no. So that can take some getting used to. The lifestyle at a U.S. college is also something that certainly there's a great diversity of lifestyles for students at Virginia Tech, but there are also some aspects of U.S. college that are quite different, starting with things like tailgating at football games, American football, the importance of sports, the way that students party here, it's different. So another aspect that's culturally different is diversity in the U.S. So the way that we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and the way that we think about different dimensions of cultural difference, racial, ethnic, sexuality, gender, these are things that are talked about in the United States in different ways than in other cultures, and that takes some getting used to. So finally, the social challenges that international students face, and again, not unique to international students, but making friends, maintaining friendships. I do think for international students, there are cultural differences in how people socialize, and these are differences that are also even regional. I am originally from this part of the United States, but I've spent a lot of time in my life living elsewhere. And one thing that for me was very specific to this area when it comes to the social dimension is we're part of the South. And it's very common in the South, if you meet strangers, to smile and say hello. It's a very friendly culture on the surface. And if you travel somewhere else, I was in the Midwest and I've been in the Northeast and I've lived overseas, and it can seem like it's a very friendly culture when people smile and say hello. But then the process of taking the next step to make friends and knowing when you've established a friendship with someone, that takes a little getting to know, right? That process. So the social aspect is a challenge. But for each challenge, we offer a range of supports. So I think this is really important. If you take nothing else from today, know that your student is going to be looked after, and we're going to be paying attention to all the signs, and we'll be looking for ways to support them. And while there is an expectation that the students bear responsibility for their academic success, there's a whole wealth of supports that we offer. So Hokie Wellness, that office offers opportunities to learn about things like mindfulness and financial wellness and stress reduction. Rec Sports, that office offers group exercise classes. In the past, they've offered gender segregated exercise classes that some students are more comfortable with. They offer intramural sports. They offer group classes that are specific to international students in the past. We have Cook Counseling that offers mental health support. We very much have a culture here of seeking support for mental health. That's also not a universal around the world, but mental health is seen as a priority, as a part of health here, and supporting mental health, being mentally strong, is seen as a part of supporting a college students' academic success. We also have individual strengths-based coaching, and we have the Timely Care app for online counseling, and that's an app that also offers counseling services in translation in several different languages. We have a women's center on campus that offers many events and programs related to relationship health and reproductive health. and many events that are not exclusively for female-bodied or women, but for all students. And we also have campus cultural and community centers that are focused on supporting our many different populations here at Virginia Tech. So some of the supports that are offered include academic supports. We have Student Success Center that offers tutoring for all the big required first-year courses in some of the majors like engineering. We have a writing center on campus that supports any kind of writing that students are doing, including later when they might be working on a resume. Many departments have study groups that support students who are majoring in that academic focus. We have living learning programs, or LLPs, that have an academic focus. Some of your students might be going into the Galileo and Hypatia communities, for example. We have several LLPs that are focused on supporting students in different majors, in different academic majors. And those are a support network for students as an academic support. And we also have strength-based coaching that's offered by our Office of Learning Partnerships. For some of the cultural aspects of connecting, of course, we have wonderful programs during Weeks of Welcome that are offered by the New Student Family Programs Office. Our Cramwell Events and Program staff offers a monthly international cafe hour. You see a photograph from one of the cafe hours in the past year. This is something that happens during the month, during the academic year. We also have an annual International Street Fair in April. Every single week of the academic calendar from August all the way through May, Experience VT offers a host of programs for students. There are also over 800 organizations on Gobbler Connect. It's another thing to take note of is encourage your student to log into Gobbler Connect. They can already, with their VT email account, register for Gobbler Connect, and they can start looking at all the different student organizations. So of those 800, there are about 90 student organizations that are led by students that have a cultural, national, ethnic, or linguistic focus. But there are organizations for everything. There's a chocolate milk group. There's many pre-professional associations. Anything that you can imagine, a Hokie has started a club around that. We also have opportunities that I think are particularly valuable through the Office of VT Engage. And these are opportunities to develop leadership skills and to engage in service, which is one valuable way that Hokies can get off campus, including during breaks. If your international student is not able to travel back home during a week of spring break or Thanksgiving, there are often programs offered by offices on campus that can help them connect. And then finally, VT and athletics and rec sports also offer lots of opportunities. And we know these are super popular with international students because we did a recent survey and we found that students particularly like to join in intramural soccer. They like to play badminton, and they're very active through athletics. And of course, we're offering a lot of support along the journey. We are always thrilled to recognize and celebrate international students when they graduate in May. This is a photograph from one of our events that we do every year called the International Student Achievement Celebration. We offer help, of course, pre-arrival, as I've mentioned, through our modules and the content that we're sharing, through orientation. We're really excited to continue offering follow-up modules during the semester. We partner with Career Professional and Development, that office in particular, because we know that career support is very important to international students. So we partner with them to offer a range of sessions. Usually we do 10 sessions in the fall, and we do another 10 sessions in the spring. And these are sessions that prepare students to understand the technical pieces that they need to complete in order to be eligible to work off campus using curricular practical training. And then, of course, we celebrate students when they graduate. So some tips for supporting your Hokie. First of all, normalize culture shock. That is going to be challenging, and that's completely normal and healthy, and it takes time to adjust. And helping your student feel a little bit more comfortable with the discomfort that can come from a change as big as moving into a culture different from your home culture. Remind your student of the importance of physical well-being, diet, sleep, and exercise. I'm also a parent. My oldest child just turned 18. He's going to be going to college in a year, and I know I'm probably going to be like the stereotype of a parent when I talk to him. I'm saying, Jack, how are you sleeping? Are you eating well? Are you getting enough exercise? I know that that's a stereotype, but it is actually important for us to do that, to check in on our kids and our students. Also, trust your student as they change and grow. I can imagine that when your student comes to Virginia Tech and encounters U.S. culture, living here, if they haven't already been in the U.S., that will appear in different ways. They will change and grow in ways that we cannot predict. So you need to trust them and try your best to trust them. Try your best to grow with them also. Grow with them by learning new cultural references. Learn about things like, what is tailgating? Learn about campus-specific references like the duck pond here at Virginia Tech. Encourage your student to engage in campus life outside the classroom. Academics are, of course, super important. This is why we pursue a college education, is to help us develop intellectually and then pursue our career goals. But an important part of the U.S. college experience is getting involved in campus life. The photograph here is a photograph of some of the wonderful student leaders from the Council of International Student Organizations, which is one of the groups that Cranwell has the pleasure to mentor. And these are students who have worked with this organization through their time at Virginia Tech. And it's for some of those international students in CISA, they say at the end, this is the most important, significant thing that I've done, is take a leadership role in a campus organization. There's some other things that you can help support your students' adjustments by doing. So one thing is to coach them to be responsive and responsible for their learning. Faculty, as I said before, really expect students at an American university to be very self-motivated and stay on top of their studies. There's lots of deadlines and lots of kind of self-monitoring, self-regulation that students have to do. Also, encourage your student to advocate and communicate for themselves directly. Usually the outcome is better if students are able to articulate, advocate, ask for what they need directly. It can be hard to do at first, but it's important to encourage. If a student comes to you, if your student comes and asks, for help, or that they report having a difficulty, I would encourage you as your first step to help them advocate for themselves. Of course, the other thing to do is encourage them to stay in touch with you and with extended family and with friends. It's much easier to do that today, thankfully, with the internet. And encourage them also to utilize support services. I've mentioned a whole list of services. Frankly, it's too much to take in all at once, but you'll have a recording of this and you can come back to it. And you want to encourage your student to utilize those support services. And finally, the last reminder is, if they have questions about their visa status and non-immigrant visa regulations, including things like working off campus, make sure that they come to Cranwell. So if they're asking those questions, there's always a temptation, I think, when we have family members who might have come and studied in the US or other resources, to ask, well, I know so-and-so is a student at the Rochester Institute of Design or at Berkeley, but the unique circumstances of each student regarding their F1 status require really that they come and ask a designated school official here at Virginia Tech. So we want to make sure if your student comes to you and has a question, please refer them back to the Cranwell International Center to get support. All right, and I think we have 15 minutes. We'd love to take some questions.
Yeah, Rob, we have a question in the Q&A from HP. Where can we get the LLC course as it is not showing in the Hokie scheduler or at add drop section in Hokie Spa? This is above my pay grade.
That's a terrific question. So LLC is the Living Learning Community. And I am imagining this question is from a family member or maybe a student who has been accepted into one of our LLCs or LLPs. And some of them have a course that is either required or optional. And you should not, when you're in that LLP and you've been accepted, you will be added to that course based on your residence in the LLP. That's a process that should happen in the background that does not require your student to actually add the course. I taught an optional 1-credit course here in the Mosaico LLP this past fall, and the students for that were able to be added because they were residents in the LLP or LLC. And now, having said that, if that has changed, because sometimes those processes do change, your student will receive information about that LLC course directly from Virginia Tech. It will come to their vt.edu email, and this is one of those, you're going to hear that reminder many times, but make sure that they're checking their vt.edu email, because there could be instructions in there. And some cases that are unique that I can think of would be if a student is accepted into an LLC off of a wait list, or if they move from one LLC to another, which sometimes happens because some of the learning communities are in really high demand. So if your student is moving in late, the process might look a little different for getting into that course. There might be an email that comes later. But the other piece of advice that I always give parents, and this is, again, because I'm thinking about this, and I think our staff think in these terms as well. We're at a large institution, and we know that there are important systems that are in place to serve tens of thousands of students. And then each of us is also focused on the individual student, right? So I always advise a student, you know what, if for whatever reason that course still has not appeared in your list in HokieSpa, and you know that you should be in that class because you're in the LLC and it's required, what you do is you look in the timetable, you find when that course meets, and you show up the first day. You go directly to that course and you talk to the instructor. That's something I recommend just because I'm a both and person. Especially when it comes to something as important as getting into a class. That won't mean that going to a course will get you in it. That's not what I'm saying. There are courses that are closed except for juniors and seniors. You will not be able to necessarily get into a class just by going the first day. That's not what I'm saying. But I am encouraging that for that LLC, for that situation. So a question about immunization form. So yes, absolutely. If your child has submitted the immunization history form, they will get a request to submit that from Virginia Tech, because it's a requirement for every single student that enters Virginia Tech to have an immunization history form on file. That is due by June 30th. And if they've submitted it and Schifferdt Health, our Schifferdt Health Center, has indicated that they need extra shots, there are several options. So one would be to schedule with a physician at home to get those shots that were needed. It is also possible when you arrive to get an immunization appointment with Schifferdt Health. Schifferdt Health has graciously offered a range of times for appointments, and we're getting the list of students who need extra shots, and we'll be reaching out to them and indicating an appointment with Schifferdt when they'll be able to get those shots. There's also will be a list of what the immunizations cost, and they are reimbursable. So you do have to pay some upfront for those shots, but they are reimbursable through the student medical insurance plan. So I think I've answered that question. Would love to take some more questions.
Excellent. What is the screen that we're seeing with the different colors? Is that something that we're going to hear about?
Oh, thank you. Those are the brand codes for all the official colors at Virginia Tech, of course, the hex codes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're glad that you keep that readily on file.
We have to make sure that everything is appearing properly in the Chicago maroon and burnt orange. Those are the colors. Actually, that's another aspect of universities in the United States that I think is particularly powerful, is that there is such a strong sense of being a part of a team and like brand identity. So this is something that I've been at universities all over the world, and I can say the American college spirit, like team spirit, is very intense here. So you'll see shirts that say things like, "We bleed orange and maroon." But that just gives you a sense of how strong the identity is. Like once someone becomes a Hokie, which is our mascot, you're always a Hokie. You're part of this larger community, and that does have a really positive side, which is you can travel anywhere in the world, and if you see someone with the VT logo, you know you can strike up a conversation with them.
Well, in the chat, we have posted a link for joining the Hokie Family Hub. That is an information portal that's directly or directed specifically to families of students here at Virginia Tech. You can join communities within that based on your interests, like athletics or different things, including there is an international community where you'll receive things that are specific to our international students here. And I know that Rob and Danielle will be cranking out the content for the Hokie Family Hub. Thank you in advance for that request, as well as there is in the chat the link to completing a survey of this webinar. If you complete the survey and give us your email address as part of that, we will share with you the extensive Q&A transcript, both questions, as well as everything we posted in the chat, all the links, as well as some other helpful documents. This video will be up and available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@HokiesOnTrack/videos. You can also watch previous webinars that may or may not be interesting to you. We do have some future webinars coming up that might relate to your experience, but it's always good to be informed about what everybody is getting in terms of information. And I do want to emphasize the next steps for all of our students and for all of our families. We say, remind your student to check their @vt.edu email every day. That is the main pipeline of information. If you haven't seen the nowwhat.vt.edu website, it's a slick checklist of what to do and the order to do it in, and then also our Facebook page and our website, and our email is down at the bottom if you have any questions. Rob, will you post the Cranwell email into the chat there so that folks can have that also in case there are questions specific to this? Rob, Danielle, anything else to share before we wrap?
We can't wait to meet you all in person. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we look forward to the fall. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being here.
I think she's in wrap.
I think Rob, resources that we'll be having for the next couple of weeks. Your student has question list. Oh, I think my internet's going in and out. So I was just gonna, Rob, you can maybe take over for me, but I was gonna plug again that we're hosting the video and webinar sessions through our office for the next couple of weeks. And so I would strongly recommend that people join those if they're able to.
Yeah, if there's a link to that information, go ahead and pop that into the chat so we have that saved and available. That's good information, and I know
I'm able to only put things in the chat for hosts and panelists at the moment. So if I can put it in that chat, and then someone could copy it and put it in the chat for everyone, that would be great. And
my apologies. These settings keep changing. Yeah. All right. So there's the email address that you can contact Rob and Danielle directly for questions that you have. And now we're waiting for that link.
Let's see. It might be, I can actually drop a brochure for our series, if that's helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me do that. Can share screen as well.
All right, well, we'll stay on for a couple minutes after I stop the recording, but we're once again grateful to Rob and Danielle, as well as Lauren, for joining us at the beginning. Thank you so much for viewing, and please send us any questions that you have that we might not have had a chance to answer during our video today. Thank you so much. And from Blacksburg, Virginia, we say go Hokies.